Okay, this video tutorial is to teach you how to make a beanbag. You can make these for yourself, but we're going to be using them as a service project for the elementary school students who won't have a field to play with the first few months when we come back. So they're going to have some beanbag toss games in the classroom. So we're going to make beanbags. These will be filled with popcorn, but you can use soybeans or any kind of beans that you have. Rice, after getting tossed around a lot, starts breaking up a little faster. So anything that's hard, popcorn is a really hard grain that would fit in nicely. So let's just get started on what we need to do to make that today. The first thing you need to have is some equipment. So you could use scissors and shears to cut this like you did your sewing projects, but I want to introduce you to the Rotary mat and the Rotary cutters and the Rotary rulers, which are a fun way to learn to cut precise shapes quickly. So I'm going to use the smaller one today since this is a small project. They come in different sizes. So when you're using this, you want to make sure that if you're right-handed, you hold it in the cutter in your right hand, and your left hand has to firmly make sure that the ruler doesn't slip. That's the biggest problem. And so if you keep it firmly pressed down with your left hand as you're cutting, when you start cutting, I'm not cutting on the mat because I don't have fabric here yet, but you'll keep the blade perpendicular to the side of the ruler, so straight up, and you want to make sure that you do like a back stitch. You go forward, backward, and then forward, and you're pressing just one time really hard, straight along the edge, perpendicular. Then you're going to rotate your fabric 90 degrees and always keep it on your right side. You're standing up when you use a rotary cutter, and you're pushing away from you. So that's the direction. And then you'll be doing that a third time, starting right here, pushing away. And we're only cutting, I think, well, actually we'll be doing that 4-stripe. You need to have a scrap of denim fabric, which we have a lot left over from the gym bag projects, and it needs to be big enough for at least 2 6.5-inch squares. And so I'm going to put this, if the edges are evenly straight, I can just put it right up to that edge and let that be my first edge. So then I'm going to just turn it and rotate it so that the right side is toward me, keeping this down. If I were a perfectionist, I could even take my rotary cutter and even that off, but it really doesn't need to be done. So I have my hand in position, pick up my rotary cutter. If you notice the black safety cover in the down position, it's open, so you need to be very, very careful not to let your finger get near that blade. It can get nasty cuts with these. So when you're not using it, you should always push the safety cover up so that the black cover covers the entire blade and there's no danger of getting cut. So only pull it down when you're cutting. When you're not cutting, push it back up. Okay, so I've got it down and I've got my fabric in position with my ruler on top, and I'm going to start right here, push a little bit away, and then press really hard one time. You don't want to be needing to go back and forth. You should not be sawing with this. And if you pull it and it doesn't come up, let's try the other one and see if it's a sharper blade. Might be time to change the blade. Okay. And I get clear to the end, and it just pulls away neat and straight like that. It gives you a nice clean cut. It feels so satisfying. So then I'm going to move it and get it in position again. And put the 2 pieces here, again starting at the corner, pushing away from me, going through both layers. And if it doesn't cut through 2 layers well, you might want to do 1 layer at a time. In fact, that's what I strongly advise when you are just starting to use a rotary cutter. And then here I have a fold, which technically I could leave it there, but I'm going to, just for the purpose, you won't always have a fold there, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off so that we're working with 2 pieces. Okay, and then get this in position one last time. So that's how you use the rotary cutter and mat and ruler to cut fabric. And again, the blade isn't quite sharp, so we'll cut that off. Okay, So once you have your two pieces of fabric together, this is really dark fabric and it's hard to tell the right side from the wrong side, but I can see that I actually already have the right sides together. So you're going to make sure that, like on this one, you can clearly see the right sides of the fabric are on the inside, the wrong sides are on the outside. So right sides together, I think I have that written down here somewhere. That's what RST means. Right sides together every time you sew. And then as you sew, I've marked this with a marker because it's hard to use the camera at the sewing machine, but you're going to start at the upper right corner. You're going to sew forward and back stitch. You don't need to make these marking lines on here because you can use the presser foot. Let me just show you here. Let's see. Let's picture that. Okay. Right here. Okay, you can see in this picture here that the inside edge of the presser foot matches. Where did it go? Sorry. Let's go back here. Okay, so the edge of the presser foot matches along the edge of the fabric, and if you use that as your guide, you won't need to mark the lines on. But if you like marking the lines, and that makes it easier for you, then you'll remember not to sew too far to the end. You'll stop that same distance, 3/8 of an inch, about 6 millimeters before each side. So you'll do that, and then you'll back stitch at the beginning and the end. So when you first start, remember to put your needle down in the down position, stitch to the corner, and if you stop, if your needle started in the down, it will end in the down. Then you lift up your presser foot and turn it 90 degrees and continue sewing straight across. Again, the needle will end in the down position. Lift up your presser foot, turn it 90 degrees and stitch to here, and then back stitch at the end. So once you've done that, this is what it will look like. And so you'll have an opening at the top, which we need to have it open to be able to fill it with popcorn. But before we turn it right side out, we need to get rid of some of the bulk in the corners. By cutting this piece of fabric off without cutting through our stitching line, we will be able to have sharper corners in our bean bags when we finish. So if you don't do that, it's a little bulky and it doesn't lay as smooth. To do that, you can use the rotary cutters for that, but I'm going to just go ahead and cut it off with shears. And again, you don't have to draw these lines. I did that just for demonstration. So I'm going to cut right there, being very careful not to cut through my stitching line. That is so critical. And then cut up here, and then come over on the other side, and cut there. So then, once I've done that, you have little scraps here, just make sure to throw those away properly. Then you're ready to turn it right side out so that you can fill it. So as you do it, I like to reach in all the way and stick my finger right in the corner. So I've got it like this, and I've got one finger right there ready to push it to the right side. And then poking it out, I don't know if you can see that very well, that will help you have sharp corners on your bean bags. If you want to make different shaped bean bags like ovals or circles, you can certainly do that and you won't have to worry about the corners. But you, and you probably won't even have to trim it like I did to reduce the bulk. That's just for corners. Okay, so I've got it open all the way around like this. And we're going to be using popcorn for this size of bean bag. This is one bag of popcorn, 220 grams. Gives me about 1 cup, and so I got that here. And you can get this popcorn at Daiso, but you can put literally anything inside as fillers. Okay, so then I'm going to just carefully pour this through, trying not to spill popcorn all over the place. Okay, and then what we need to do is sew that shut. So when you get ready to sew it shut, we need to not have these raw edges showing. So we're going to tuck them to the inside. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this edge, about 1.5 centimeters, so that we will be sure to have it completely tucked in. And if you wanted to, you could actually even go to the iron and press that amount right there. It gets a little tricky when you have a lot of beans in there, but I find that even if you don't press it, that you've got it turned under the same amount on both sides, then it is very important. You can use pins, but you can also use clips. Clips are great for this because they'll keep the popcorn in and help you as you sew. So I'm going to aim to get all the loose threads tucked to the inside. And usually I put about 3 clips or 3 pins to keep that in place. And when you come into class and make these, I'll just show you where these things are at so you can use them. Okay, so then you're going to go to the sewing machine and you'll start with your bean bag on the left side of the needle. So you'll have it under there like this. And it's very thick right here because you've got at least 4 layers of denim, which is a thicker fabric. So you have to be careful. And the trick is, if you take the loose threads behind your machine and hold them and pull it, it won't get stuck right there. But basically you're going to stitch forward, backward, and then stay as close to this edge as you can as you're sewing. And then when you get to the end, you also need to back stitch. The back stitching at both ends on this is very important to make sure it's very secure, because a lot of elementary kids are going to be throwing these all over the place. So we want to make sure that they're sewn securely. Okay, so this is what it should look like when we're done. Just by one more stitch right there. That's all you have to do. So that's how you make a bean bag, and I hope you have fun trying different shapes. You can put designs. I've had students make these with emoji faces on them. You can do all kinds of things, but you need to do that before you sew the pieces together. Okay, there you go. Have fun. Happy sewing.